On behalf of the Men's Club, as well as the residents of Door County, I hope you enjoy your evening. We got a very unusual program. It's not your typical program, but it's a hidden, deep, dark world beneath our very feet that most people have never had a chance to see. And so I guess I kind of feel like I'm presenting the American and world show cave industry as a result. It's amazing what's underground. Let's take this country alone. There's about a dozen caves that have underground boat trips. One cave you can actually go through in a Jeep or on a cart pulled by a Jeep. There's 18 elevators servicing almost 200 show caves in the U.S. And there's also 2 government caves that you can eat underground. So just about everything you want to do, you can do underground here, just in the United States or in the world. And I have seen all the show cave operations in the U.S., quite a few from around the world. So if you have questions later, feel free to ask. I'm glad to see some of you browsed and took a look at the colorful spectrum of materials and archive posters that have been put out over the years. And I might point out our first show cave visitor was recorded in 1213 in the Postania Jama, which is a cave in Yugoslavia, and I was fortunate enough to see it. They get 700,000 visitors a year. Our oldest cave here in America is 1804. Now, before I take and continue on, I know there's some questions on show caves. One thing that I would like to point out is up to about 35, 40 years ago, you'd refer to these as commercial caves. Now it's show caves. The reason is because of the communist countries in the eastern part of Europe requested that they prefer not to use that name. So the World Congress of Speleology made the determination that these were going to be show caves. Now, I want to tell you something. You all sit here and you have a stage setting. A show cave is interesting because the stage setting is all the formations you see here, the beauty, the color, even the various trails. And it is you, the public, that literally move through and not sit in one spot. So in other words, you go to the stage setting as opposed to them bringing it to you. So that is one key thing. Another question, what constitutes a show cave? And I know you're all thinking, oh, a little bit of money here, you know, that's what makes a show cave. Boy, I wish, for those that believe it, come on over, you give me your money. I'm going to get one of the modern day commercial outfitters, and they're going to take you on a wild caving trip for pay. And you're going to climb on ropes, you're going to crawl in mud, you might have to get through water, and you're going to say, well, wait a minute, you know, this isn't a show cave. By the same token, I can show you a cave that isn't all that far from here in a nearby state that has cement walkways, a gift shop, paved parking, a guide, and lights, but is free. So obviously there's something a little bit different that has to be taken into account here. What it is yes, money is a key part of it. Yes, development's a key part of it. But also, it should be pointed out, it's more or less set times that the caves are open. Now, if you have a cave, you know, that's open 24 hours a day, that probably is a good chance to be a wild cave, whereas show caves do have the set hours of operation. Now, conservation. People are very fortunate in having show caves in their communities. The reason I say this is you take Cave of the Mounds, August 4th, 1939, it was discovered in a quarry. A beautiful cave. In fact, this is a map of the cave right here, and you can look at it later, and you can see what it looks like. It's 1,600 some feet in length, and very beautiful. But now, had that cave not been developed or high economic value put on it, so that the owner would make sure that not let vandalism take place, there'd be nothing left in that cave today. It would be just history. So that's why I like to promote show caves and do the best I can to make sure that everything is nicely represented. So conservation, yes, you do move a few cave formations now and then, but you take those formations and you can use them for indirect lighting, like a shield for a light. So granted, while there is some disruption in a cave, most of it, 99%, is preserved in its natural state. Now, we're talking about show caves. How many are there? there's about 1,200 show caves in the world, in over 60 different countries. The United States has almost 200, depending on how you want to define a show cave. Here in Wisconsin, we have a total of 8 show caves, and I might point out that of those 8, 2 of them have closed, but 6 are still in operation. The closest full-fledged show cave is Cave of the Mountains. But we have 2 semi-developed caves, and I'm a member of the Wisconsin Speleological Society. I've been a caver for over half a century, and we are in the process of developing these 2 locations right here in northeast Wisconsin for public tours. One of them is the Ledgeview Nature Center and the Carolyn's Cavern System near Chilton. The other is the Maribel Caves, called Maribel New Hope Cave. Our group, and I'm proud to say this, discovered a cave there for 21 years after this Manitowoc County Park, Cherney Maribel Caves County Park, was discovered. No one even knew the cave existed. We have excavated it out, moved all the material. Today we have floodlights in there certain days of each month. The 3rd Sunday of every month, starting in May through September, and the 2nd Sunday in October, you can go down there, and for a donation, you can get a chance to go in. The best time is from 10 in the morning till about 3 in the afternoon. Beautiful floodlighted cave. It's walking passageway. We do have formations. There's some bats. A very interesting attraction to see. So, having said that, I know what you're probably wondering. What are the superlatives of the caves around? And of course, our largest in the country is Carlsbad Caverns. But let me just give you a little bit of facts on the show cave industry. If you were to take just 142 of probably the most significant caves that are open to the public here and do the statistics on, as of 2010, believe it or not, 9,120,467 visitors toured America's caves. You might wonder, well, what did they spend on the average? Well, believe it or not, the average tourist spent from $15.80 to $16.30 each. And that would come out to a grand total in just 1 year of $144,290,363. 61% of these caves have under 40,000 visitors a year. 22% of the caves have 40 to 100,000 visitors a year. 16.9% of the caves have over 100,000 visitors a year. Mammoth Cave, you've all heard of Mammoth Cave in Kentucky, which, by the way, has just reached a little over 400 miles in length as we speak. That cave gets 400,000 visitors a year. Communities all around there thrive just because of Mammoth Cave. A lot of us travel from cave to cave. We go to other countries. I know I went over to Moscow doing research, Australia, different countries. It's a growing group of people that just like to go to see show caves. Well, 7.9% of all these visitors are international visitors. Employment, another big aspect. 1,403 full-time employees in just American show caves alone, and another 3,354 part-time, for a total of 4,757 employees. Talk about education. It's wonderful. You see pollution on the ground. You wonder, where does this pollution go? You see it run in the ground, you don't think anything more of it. If you got a show cave and you're fortunate, you can go and see that lifeline in the ceiling, that crack. You can understand where the pollution enters the groundwater, where it drips down on the ceilings, forming formations in some cases that are stained because of impurities in that. Well, 85.7% of all show caves have educational programs. Now just think of the secondary impacts of this. The tourists come. If we had a show cave here in Door County, they all come. They want to eat. They want to stay at a motel. They want to visit a gift shop. They have to get gas. They have car repairs. You can just imagine the economic benefits of having a natural show cave. I might point out our group, the Wisconsin Speleological Society, has a website. It's wisconsincaves.org. And I can tell you for a fact that if you go ahead and click on that website, you can see postcards of all our show caves. There's videos, information on the caves at Maribel I told you about, Ledgeview, you name it. And it's under the photo gallery, but there's other sections as well. At this point, I think what we're going to do is we're going to fasten our seatbelts. We're going to take and get our passports. And we're going to tour, as P.T. Barnum would once say, the greatest show under Earth. And if we could get the lights over there, please. Hopefully this will better here in a little bit. We start our tour with Cave of the Mounds, right here in western Wisconsin. It's 25 miles west of Madison. Come under the entrance arch, come down into an old stone quarry where a mighty blast was set off to get rock for the Highway 151 construction. And this is the gift shop, the original one. They have two there now. After you go in the gift shop, you go down into the cave. Note the nice cement walkways. It's 18 rooms on 2 different levels, and you can see some of the beautiful ceiling formations. Here again, you can see some of the mineral deposits. This is a bacon strip that you see the main portion of here, and of course stalactites. Note the drops of water. They grow at the rate of 1 inch per 100 years. Polly the parrot. You see it's translucent. The light shines through from the opposite side. And this is calcite. Beautiful, unique staining and mineralization on this pendulum stalactite. I might point out, Cave of the Mounds is the only National Natural Landmark cave in all of Wisconsin. This is also one of the 10 longest caves out of 400 caves in Wisconsin. And if you want to count all the wild caves, in the U.S., we have about 50 to 75,000 undeveloped caves. So it's the best wild caves that have been developed as show caves. And, of course, the Dream River Room. Here's where the cave continues on. Very few people have ever had a chance to continue on down this passageway. I have, and I can tell you it's a real treat to see areas that probably the average person will never get a chance to see. Discovering a cave, I might point out, is the last frontier of man. We've been all over, mountains, to the moon, you name it. So you're in a totally alien world once you get underground. I heard people before the program this evening talking about Kickapoo Indian Caverns. Yes, it's a terrific cave. It's just north of Wazeeka in Crawford County, southwestern Wisconsin. And this is their gift shop. And they had a lot of Indian artifacts and items on display. The cave is known for its massive cathedral room, a 60-foot high ceiling, and in recent years they have extended the commercial tour beyond it. And you get a little idea of the size of this cave. Generally speaking, though, as you go south, the caves get bigger. Further north, a lot of the ice and snow is locked up, the water, in large portions of every year. So you've got to have flowing, moving water to be able to create larger caves. This right here is called the Crystal Palace. It's in Marengo Cave, which also is a National Natural Landmark, near Marengo in the southern part of Indiana. And here you see a large stalagmite formation that has managed to touch the ceiling, little stalactites nearby. I might add, when we're talking about trails in caves too, wood rots in a cave, steel rusts in a cave, aluminum oxidizes in a cave, but stainless steel is found as the preferred means of development. And as long as you don't go over 7% grade, you can avoid steps as well. These are some very impressive rimstone dams at Squire Boone Caverns, and it's near Corydon, Indiana. Now, what I should point out when I mention Corydon, Indiana, is if any of you want to see a show cave that is brand new, within a month, the newest cave in the country is going to open, called Indiana Caverns, almost in the city limits of Corydon. It's just being finished up as we speak. But this is Squire Boone Caverns. And of course, crayfish, they have no need to see, so they lose all their coloration and, of course, their eyesight. Beautiful column formation in Squire Boone Caverns. And here again you can see some of the trails. And it's interesting how they wind through the cave, being very careful to protect the natural formations, because you do have hand oils that can get on them otherwise. So they keep the trail far enough away that tourists do not touch the formations. And here we got the casket of Squire Boone, who is the brother of Daniel Boone. And his bones were in the cave, and when it was developed, they moved them into this old-fashioned type casket so they'd be a little better for display for the public as they go through. Now we are going to move just a little bit to the east into Ohio, central Ohio, to a place called West Liberty. This is Ohio Caverns. These are pure white, calcite, column formations, and of course soda straws are the thin ones coming down from the ceiling. This cave is noted for these white formations. Very unusual. And let's head a little further south. Now we are getting down into the Mammoth Cave area. This is Mammoth Onyx Cave, or today it is known as Kentucky Caverns. And they had a wildlife sanctuary up on the surface too. And here you can see how the steps made use of the side of the formation where they could work their way up, go around it, and it's only about 450 feet in length. They did just open up a rear exit to the cave, and while it is short, it is very beautiful. Oh boy, here we go. A lot of times in the old days there was a tremendous desire to try to find show caves, especially in the poor Kentucky area. They had a gentleman by the name of Floyd Collins who in February of 1925 accidentally got trapped in a cave, and eventually he died in the cave. And so as part of a tourist attraction, they brought him out and they had him in a casket and they put him inside another cave that he had opened to the public called Floyd Collins Crystal Cave. And I'm pictured here with his casket before it was eventually put naturally underground in a regular cemetery, and the same with the tombstone. But before that happened, there were so many people that wanted to see this Floyd Collins. For an extra little tip, the guide would lift the casket lid and you could look through the glass and see Floyd Collins. Some of the show cave owners got very discouraged about that because they didn't want to lose the extra publicity and they wanted more customers. So they actually stole the body. They found it minus the leg, and it was put back in the cave. Believe it or not, this is the only guy in the world that's ever worn out 3 caskets. You bet. And here we are at Great Onyx Cave, another beautiful cave. It's not part of the Mammoth Cave system, but it is in Mammoth Cave National Park, and they do occasionally have tours into this cave. Otherwise, it is ex-commercial. Cave lighting. A little bit about cave lighting. In the old days, they used torches, they used candle holders, they used lanterns, they had flares that they would throw, such as that photo is showing. More modern days, fluorescent lights, light bulbs. What do you think of today? What do you think is the newest means of lighting in a cave? LEDs. LEDs. You are right on the money. And they are very energy efficient, and they reduce the algae growth on formations. So that shows how the show cave industry has evolved. Here's the lantern tour in Mammoth Cave, and it's set out so you can get a little idea how the trail winds through the cave. There's approximately 7 miles of tour routes in Mammoth Cave proper, and they used to have one that would go all day. The longest tour now is 4 hours. This is Broadway Avenue. Now when you're walking through a cave like this, what you're really doing is walking down an old underground riverbed. Imagine this being full of water rushing along. And you can get a little idea. I've been down there and done cave conservation work and been off trail. And you see this very typically, but the largest parts are what's open to the public. Note it is quite barren, though. It doesn't have a lot of formations. And, of course, Fat Man's Misery, or Tall Man's Headache. And it's a lot of fun. They've had a person go through there that I think was in excess of 300 pounds. And so it's really quite easy to get through. But the tourists just love it because, having been in such big borehole passage, it's a welcome experience to be able to get more intimate with the cave. And speaking of getting intimate with a cave, this is a spelunking tour. By the way, people will refer to someone like myself as a spelunker, and actually what I am is a caver. And cavers rescue spelunkers. It's an old term. And this is Broadway Avenue, where it comes up from Echo River, and this is Mammoth Dome. And this is a stairway that has since been replaced with a more massive stairway, and it just shows how the tourists can wind up the stairs coming up from the Echo River level or the lower level up to get back to Broadway Avenue. Underground lunchroom. Now, Echo River is 360 feet underground. This lunchroom is 267 feet underground. Now, remember I told you there's 2 caves in the U.S. that currently have restaurants in them. This is one. This is Mammoth Cave. They even have a telephone. You can call your friends on the surface if you want. And this is on the scenic tour if you ever get down to Mammoth Cave. Frozen Niagara Formation. This is really massive, and the Draper Room is behind it. This is the part of the cave that Ronald Reagan, while he was president of the U.S., actually came and visited the cave. And he also saw another part called the Onyx Colonnade, and you can see where he come in from the Frozen Niagara entrance. Now we got another cave nearby called Crystal Onyx Cave, discovered by a gentleman by the name of Cleon Turner in 1960. It's near Cave City. It's on Pruitt's Knob, and this is a smaller example of a rimstone dam. And of course, there was a part of it was an Indian burial ground, so you can get a little idea what that looked like. If you really want to see some pretty cave formations, go see Diamond Caverns at Park City, which is the first exit south of Mammoth Cave. If you're going down to Florida, I will give you a tip too. If you just get off from the interstate a little bit on the old highway, you would believe how reasonable all the rooms are in that area, which is about half or 1 day's drive if you're taking a 2-day drive down to Florida. This is Diamond Caverns, massive pennant on the ceiling. Now we're getting down where they get even bigger. This is Cumberland Caverns, McMinnville, Tennessee. And I've been in this room. You can't really see it here, but there's, in the part that's just out of view, there's an 8-ton chandelier hanging from the ceiling. And if people are handicapped, they can be taken by jeep down into this cave. They usually have underground Christmas parties. And it's a massive cave, and it's got about 23 miles of passageway. Here again, keep in mind, over 9 million people a year pay to go underground. And here we got the pipe organ, huge room in Cumberland Caverns. This beautiful cave was opened in the 1800s. It's near Montego, Tennessee. It's called Wonder Cave, has an underground river, and you can just see how beautiful it was. Words can't describe the God-given beauty that is beneath our feet. Ruby Falls. You've all heard of that if you've ever gone down south. This is Chattanooga, Tennessee. They put in an elevator shaft 420 feet down. They took the rock from that shaft and built this castle. Now, you never know. Theoretically, you could get the blueprints for this building, and you know exactly what the next room's going to be like and all that. Guess what? They had a surprise. 260 feet down, the bottom gave way to one side of the elevator shaft. That's where they found the Ruby Falls level, and sure enough, after going through it, they came to a beautiful underground waterfall called Ruby Falls. And in terms of walking back underneath Lookout Mountain, you are at a point 1,145 feet underground, even though you've only gone down 260 feet. They advertise the waterfall as being 145 feet in height. In reality, it's about 82 feet, but still a very impressive sight. And speaking of that being the deepest that you can actually go down in a show cave in terms of being underneath the surface, I was just in a mine in Minnesota, the Sudan mine. You go down almost half a mile. In fact, the elevator shaft, and this is man-made now, gets almost 500 feet off from perpendicular as you go down. And so mines, though, are different than caves. Mines are not as stable as caves. Now, we're talking waterfalls, so let's just take a little example here. This is Tuckaleechee Caverns, Townsend, Tennessee. Very typical underground waterfall, open to the public, near Gatlinburg. Another waterfalls. This is Sequoia Caverns, and they are in northeastern Alabama near Valley Head, and they got what they call the Looking Glass Lakes. And the largest cave in the southeastern part of the U.S., Cathedral Caverns. It's now a state park. You could fly an airplane into this cave. Used to be called Bat Cave, and it has some of the most massive formations you could ever wish for. This particular formation is called Goliath, and you can see how many tons of weight it must be. And here again is a beautiful reflection pool at its base. And another massive wall of flowstone. Look at this beautiful underground mountain of onyx. And here you got columns at the top. A stalagmite forest. Keep in mind, stalactite has a C in it, hangs down from the ceiling. A stalagmite has a G in it, builds its way up from the ground. And like one person said, if the two of them meet, you have a column or else a mighty tight. And speaking of some unusual formations, the base of this formation is only 2 inches wide. It's the world's most improbable stalagmite. Now there's a lot of world records too. Some will measure the base, some will say how high a formation is. There's any number of ways to still claim to have the world's record for a stalagmite or even a stalactite. Here's another view of the beautiful forest in Cathedral Caverns. And that's near Grant, Alabama. It's a state park. One of the top 10 caves, in my opinion, and I have seen them all, in the U.S. Well, you see seashells in a cave. What do you folks think of? Any comments? All right, we're heading south, right? Well, you're right. It was an ocean. That's what limestone is, a compressed matter of thousands of little sea creatures. And that's what most of the caves in the U.S. are formed in. Although there are some with lava, which you will see. But this is in Florida. This is Florida Caverns State Park near Mariana. And here we got pure calcite, and it's called the wedding cake. Another beautiful formation in the cave surrounded by soda straws that have a kind of an iron oxide stain to them. Here's more soda straws. And a typical walking passageway. Parts of this cave do flood, kind of unusual for a show cave, but they have so many entrances, they can vary the cost of the tour and use different entrances depending on how much of the cave you can see. Right now, the spring of the year would probably be the least amount of cave that you could see. Now we're heading east. We're still continuing around the world, still in the U.S. This is at Lewisburg, West Virginia. And this is Lost World Caverns. Used to be called Grapevine Cave. And only cavers that had vertical rope work could get down into it. But you can see the massiveness of this formation. Let's keep on going now towards Washington, D.C. This is Harper's Ferry, West Virginia. And this particular cave, the former Ditmar Caves, you can see a bridge across a little lake inside one of the dome pits of the cave. This, unfortunately, is ex-commercial. It's probably about 200 ex-commercial caves in the United States, so there's about as many closed as there are that are open. Now, if you were a railroad builder and had the Southern Railway, and you came upon a cave like this, that had an entrance at each end. Why bother with a man-made tunnel? Let's just put the railroad right through the cave. And I'm standing there so you can get a little idea. You can see the telephone poles for height. And this is Natural Tunnel State Park, Clinchburg, Virginia. And this is another unusual formation. This is Dixie Caverns at Roanoke. It's near Salem. And anyway, I might point out that there's an interesting way this formation, called the Wedding Bell, was formed. And if you look at the dome itself, there was all mud underneath there. So the calcite came down, flowed over the mud, and hardened. In the meantime, the mud got washed out from underneath, and then along the edge you see the stalactites start to form, and later on stalagmites building up from the top. So there you got quite a composite of how caves formations can be formed. Grand Caverns, Grottos, Virginia. This is the oldest show cave operation in the U.S., definitely known that as of 1804, the first visitors were in there. There is rumor that one other cave on the property may have had some visitors a year or two prior to that. But this is the oldest documented show cave, and it's now a regional park. That hall there is about 60 feet high and 200 feet in length. Rare shield formation. Hydrostatic pressure in that forms these. And there's only this cave and Lehman caves and a very few others that have these kind of formations. Here again, you can see the parachute, some of the unusual formations in the cave. And the clamshell. Here again, that hydrostatic pressure came out along various lines of cleavage. And you can see how this formation could have been formed. I'm sure you all know what this cave is. This is the largest private show cave operation in the entire United States. And this is Luray Caverns. It's near Luray in Page County, Virginia. And this is the Centennial Column. Saccharin's Tent. Notice the beautiful folds of the layering calcite. Reflective pool in the cave. This cave here was discovered in 1878. And I know they already had a guidebook out by 1882, just 4 years later, because I have one in my extensive archives at home. And speaking of things that are extensive, they've got several acres of this ballroom, and they have this organ in there, and they got little rubber plunges that go all to different stalactites of various sizes. So they can literally have an underground wedding in here. They can play music, you name it. And of course, making use of a cave like this, the organist's specialty is rock music. They get better. Anyway, Shenandoah Caverns. This is near Newmarket, and you can see the beautiful cave. It don't have quite the volume of Luray, but this was discovered while they were working, cutting through a hillside to lay a rail line. Beautiful bacon strips. This is Anthodites, and this is at Skyline Caverns, just about 60 to 90 miles from Washington, D.C., and Skyline Caverns is at Front Royal, and this is in Warren County. And at one time this room was sealed, and so a unique type of environment was created in this room. And these formations, instead of 1 inch per 100 years on the average, like a typical stalagmite or stalactite, takes 7,000 years. In 1885, they started tours of this cave, Penn's Cave at Century Hall, Pennsylvania. And you literally go through the entire cave, come out a rear exit, and they feed swans on a lake before returning back through the cave. And this is inside the cave. You can see how big it is. This is probably the largest, I would say, river cave that the public can tour in the United States. Not the world, but in the United States. And now we're right at the Atlantic Ocean at Anemone Sea Cave, 92 feet in length. This is Acadia National Park near Bar Harbor, Maine. When the tide goes out, various little sea critters, including sea urchins, get caught in these tidal pools. You can only see this cave, though, during the time the tide is out. And of course, it goes out twice a day, and as you know, it's because of the gravitational pull of the moon. Now we have had our passports checked. We just arrived in southern France for the Grotto de Saint-Césaire. And that's the poster that's right to the left of the screen there, if any of you want to see it. And I picked that up. It was at a cave that I attended in nearby Monaco, and I was able to secure that for archival preservation. Another view of this cave. And this is the cave I was at, the Grotte d'Observatory, and this is above Monte Carlo in Monaco. And you can see how profuse and crowded the formations are, and you literally walk right through them. When I was in Switzerland, I went by this cave. This is the St. Beatusholen. It's an underground river cave near Interlaken. And it's known for its water and rimstone dams, formations such as you can see. And now let's go up a little further north to the Barren Hole in Germany. And this is an extinct type of cave bear. They recreated the skeleton from bones found in the cave. A lot of these caves do have a lot of bones, interesting things, but even more importantly, they also have beautiful formations, such as this here in the Barren Hole. This, by the way, was part of West Germany before it was united. Now we're in Austria, and the average temperature of an area is what the cave is. Here in Door County, Wisconsin, it's 46 degrees year-round. If you get high elevations, it can get just so it's below freezing, and these ice formations form. I might point out on the other end, you get caves down in Texas, 70 degrees year-round. And anyway, you can see the ice formations in this particular cave. You go up by means of an inclined railway, also cable cars to reach it. Unique type of cave, but it is in limestone. Now we are in Italy. I was on the Isle of Capri. I did not go to the Blue Grotto, whose entrance is here, but I went to the White Grotto. What these tourists are doing is arriving by boat, transferring into smaller boats, and then going through a tiny opening so they get in to see the Blue Grotto. And it's world-famous sea cave. And it's really a large sea cave, and the reflection of the water is just eerie. Now we are moving on to Eastern Europe. We're in Yugoslavia. This is the original show cave in the world, and I was fortunate enough to see it. Today it's part of Slovenia, and this cave has 700,000 visitors a year. And you can see the entrance to the cave in the background. Here I am standing there, and you can see a little light fixture hanging from the ceiling. Now this cave is so popular that I couldn't believe it. When I walked into the cave, I heard a roar, I heard a whistle, I looked, I couldn't figure out what was going on. Guess what? Here comes the cave train. People would get on the train, and they were going back so fast through rooms that probably were larger than half of the show caves in the U.S. And I said, well, what's the rush? You pay big money to get here. What's the rush? Well, they said, we got to get back 2 kilometers to where the big cave starts. And then you get out, you stand by whatever language you speak, and sure enough, you can start walking through the cave. Beautiful formations, kind of like a glorified version of Luray Caverns here in the eastern U.S. See the size here of this cave, and you can see the little light poles. And in that circular center part is what we call the human fish, and they're only found in that particular area. I was amazed. I thought, how's this going to work when the train comes back into the underground station to get people, because they were wandering all over the tracks. Well, sure enough, I heard the rumble. All of a sudden, I heard a policeman's whistle go off, and the guy moves his hand sideways, and everyone looked. At that point, they realized to move out of the way, and sure enough, you were able to leave. And this is the Castle Przemyski Grad, right in that same area. And what a great thing to have a castle and you have your own private cave as a secret escape route. Now, I was interested at the time, no one had ever done any research on show caves in the Soviet Union. So I thought, you know, I'm going to see about this largest one that I'd heard about down on the Black Sea. So I made arrangements, did the paperwork, and flew into Moscow. From there I took a plane and ended up going down to Soviet Georgia near Turkey and Iran. This is a billboard showing some of the cave features. This is the entrance building on the shores near the Black Sea, near Sochi. And you see that little metal, blue-like metal door there? That's where they actually put in an underground train to take people back over 2 kilometers into the mountain. And anyway, I was surprised because, you know, you think of the Soviet Union, I thought, I don't know how glamorous this is going to be, but I was really impressed. That's looking out towards the Black Sea at the parking lot. Of course, in the Soviet Union, things are a little bit more difficult. We have our Soviet driver there on the right. Ludmila was our interpreter in the middle, and that was the vehicle that they used to bring us to the cave. In fact, on the way to the cave, there was a big kind of a steer out in the middle of the road, and they didn't think anything of it. They just went around it, and he rounded his window down and slapped it on the rump as he went by, laughing to get the steer out of the road. You can see what kind of a cave this is. They might only have 7, but in all my over half a century of show cave visits and even wild visits, it's the first time to see a show cave with stained glass windows, marble floors, and electric train like this. All aboard, and we head into the cave. But I had a special reason why I wanted to see this cave. I understood it had the world's longest pedestrian bridge. Second highest as well. Well, there it is. And here you are walking up about 30 feet up on cement pillars over and around an underground sinkhole and lake. Very impressive. And that's one of the large formations near the back of the cave before you get on the train and continue on. Tower Karst, China. Here you can see some of the unique features and all that. Now, I know some of you know Helen Sheets, who's from the Methodist Church. Here she is in Reed Flute Cave in China. And moving on east. Here we are in Australia. And I had the tour guide, bus driver, actually stop the bus in the cave entrance so I could get a special slide showing the size of the Jenolan Caves. They're in the Blue Mountains, about 120 miles inland from Sydney, Australia. Now keep in mind that cave entrance is still going up as it goes off the slide. Here's a roadway through the cave. And you got about 7 different sections of cave, depending which one you want to tour. And this is some typical formations from the land down under. And when you think about it, you know how fast a plane is. Can you imagine being on a plane, though, as direct and as fast as it goes for 19 hours? World famous, the Glowworm Cave on the North Island of New Zealand. You go to Auckland and you head south to Waitomo. And this here is the tour waiting to go into the Glowworm Cave. What's unique is it's this and a little bit of Australia is the only places where you have these glowworms. And they are larvae and they have a bioluminescent light. And they string a web down and midges fly into it and then they suck them back up and devour them. Now you notice the guide is pulling on a cable. The reason he's doing that is you can't have any artificial light or they will extinguish their lights. And also you got to know where to go. South Island. This here is the Tiano Caves on the South Island near Tiano. You get on the boat, you go for about a mile across the lake. You get on several boats within the cave and you end up getting out again, walking across the bridge that you see at the top of the slide on the left, and you continue on into the cave past this waterfall. And here again, they do have glowworms in the back. On the way back, they stop for a refueling stop in French Polynesia, or what you might refer to as Tahiti. And here's a large lava cave on the island of Tahiti. Now I know what you're saying, well how big is this lava cave? Well, here I am standing there just to give you a little bit of a size of the entrance to the cave. It's not necessarily the length, it's the volume here. By the way, in terms of size, the largest room in the world that people can go into is Deer Cave, and that is on the island of Borneo, and they have just discovered a cave in Vietnam that has a room even bigger than that. But even the one on the island of Borneo could have about 16 747 jets parked inside of it and still have room left over. Now we are back in the U.S. We've gone through U.S. Customs, and we have started to work our way back towards Wisconsin. And this is the Cavern Queen, one of the unusual show caves near Redding in Northern California. What's so unusual about it? Well, you arrive at the visitor center, you get on the Cavern Queen, you go across the lake, then get on this tour bus, go 800 feet up a mountain till you get to Lake Shasta Caverns. And that's one of the unusual formations in the cave. And that kind of a rough part on the left half of this formation, that's cave coral and can only form underwater. In the old days, maybe tourists would arrive at the cave and their favorite dinosaur. But this is Shoshone Indian Ice Caves, Shoshone, Idaho. And of course you got to pose for the Indians and everything. You get little pictures taken. And then we're going to continue on. They don't get a lot of water, by the way, in the area too. It is a lava area, but lava is a very good insulator, so it's really cold. And these are lava stalagmites. But here's what's unique about the cave. It's one of the few caves that has permanent ice in it, and they elevated the walkway so that tourists wouldn't slip or the ice get melted. And this is the main lava tube. Now, lava caves are formed just a little bit different than your normal caves, which are formed by running water. When you have a volcano and the lava is flowing along, obviously what's going to cool first is the exposed outer edge. So that'll cool and harden, whereas the molten magma will keep on flowing, and as a result you get these hollowed out lava tubes. Arco Tunnel in Idaho, and you can see the stairs coming down into it. They have a number of government places where you can tour lava caves in that area. Now, these are Crystal Ice Caves, American Falls, Idaho, and they are very unique. They're in lava, and unfortunately this is now an ex-commercial cave. You get a little idea though what it looks like. This is near American Falls in southern part of Idaho. Now let's head south. Now we are going to Roosevelt, Arizona area, to Tonto National Monument, where Indians have built little prehistoric, so to speak, not prehistoric, but old homes where they would use native construction materials available to them, and they were great for protection from the elements. And of course, in 1901, a cowboy by the name of Jim White noticed smoke coming out of a New Mexico hillside near Carlsbad, New Mexico. He investigated, found out the smoke was not smoke at all, but millions of bats heading out of a cave. Today, this is Carlsbad Caverns National Monument, probably the deepest true show cave in terms of going down, as opposed to walking in under a mountain. Here you can see a mother-in-law's tongue hanging from the ceiling, and it's a stalactite formation with cave coral on the end of it. The underground lunchroom, 750 feet underground. And I might point out they actually had a holdup in the cave, and they took a lady hostage, shot up a screen, demanded $1 million and a plane to take him to South America. And it was quite a hostage situation. It resolved itself okay, but that took place right here in this underground lunchroom. Now remember I talked about size of formations. Here you can get an idea just how massive formations can be. This room is almost 300 feet high, and these formations are about 285 feet here. What's even more amazing is, can you imagine taking a cave tour and walking 1¼ miles around the room and still be in the same room? And this is the big room of Carlsbad Caverns. Awful hard to light. A cave is 40% darker than the darkest moonless night you'll ever experience in your lifetime. And it has about 90% relative humidity. And these are the bats. These are Mexican free-tailed bats. And in the spring of the year, they go out of the cave, they go to Mexico, they get pregnant, return, and then raise their young in the cave. Now this seems like a caver exploring a little insignificant cave. Today this is a walk-in entrance here. If you were to take this tour, the first half of the tour, you'd say, well, what's so great about the cave? It's not all that big. The walls are rather barren. Suddenly you go into a coral reef, and just like that, the most magnificent helictite-filled cave known in the world. And this is near Sonora in western Texas, Sonora County. And these are the War Club formations. Soda straws hanging down from the ceiling, and even strong wind currents could theoretically break them off. Notice it's a living formation there. Just look at this for beauty. Can you imagine trying to put a trail through when you got formations everywhere as you look? Just imagine. And this is a famous Caverns of Sonora butterfly. Unfortunately, a guide was distracted by a tourist while another tourist broke off one of the wings. And they never did find it. So I don't know if they're going to eventually try to see if they could somehow carefully duplicate it or not. But anyway, this is a rare slide that shows the Caverns of Sonora butterfly. Natural Bridge Caverns. Cavers found a cave near New Braunfels, which is north of San Antonio in Texas, and they were amazed at the size of the rooms they found. They went and talked to the owner, who was a rich rancher. They had some people come in, and they said, yes, it could be a state park, but they said, you know, we'll take it and develop the cave ourselves. So this is a remnant of a former cave room here, the Natural Bridge. The tour starts by going down to the left there. Sherwood Forest, one of the beautiful rooms in this massive cave. Now after this forest, they ran into a problem, and that was Purgatory Creek. They'd had to drop down 30 feet into a creek that at times could suddenly fluctuate in its water level, and then have to work their way all back up again. Well, here again, developers are not stupid when it comes to caves. They know how to try to make ends meet, and here is a cantilevered walkway from Sherwood Forest over that creek going to the biggest known cave chamber in the entire state of Texas. And so here you are looking down at Purgatory Creek. Hall of the Mountain King. And you could just see the size. In fact, you don't even notice there's people in there. And if you look real carefully, right in the middle, you'll see a man and a woman, just to give you an idea of just how big this room is. Now, only in Texas can something like this happen. They were going to have a highway overpass. So the Texas Highway Department drilled to see just how solid the ground was for the weight of the overpass. 33 feet down, boom, the drill bit just disappeared. They were thinking, whoa, what is this? So they enlarged the opening, lowered a man down, found a massive cave with prehistoric bones. Today, this is Inner Space Caverns at Georgetown, Texas. It's near Austin. And here's an inclined railway going down into the cave. Here's the main room of the cave where the drill bit came through. Very impressive. You can see how nice the cave has been protected. Had it not been developed, you would never see formations like this. Blanchard Spring Caverns, one of two only caves in the U.S. operated by the U.S. Forest Service. This is the biggest cave in Arkansas and Missouri. Well worth a visit if you ever get down there. And you go down 216 feet on an elevator to a carpeted underground lounge. Onondaga Cave. This is probably the biggest cave in Missouri. Opened in 1904, or actually even before that, but in 1904 it was shown to visitors from the St. Louis World's Fair. And you can see the tourist trail winding up an onyx-covered hillside. And, of course, the world-famous lily pads and the lily pad room of Onondaga Cave, which is a state park near Leesburg, Missouri. And in that same state park is the old Cathedral Cave that's been modified in recent times and reopened to the public. And Missouri is the #1 show cave in the U.S. In terms of the number of show caves in the state. And there's probably been, I would say, close to 100 show caves, half of which are still in operation. And here we go, the most scenic 1-mile drive in America. Fantastic caverns. This is the old Temple Cave, it used to be called. And this particular cave used to have meetings for the Ku Klux Klan in it. And today you got this Jeep that pulls trailers with tourists in it. Here's another view of the road bed. And the old meeting room. They used to have live radio broadcasts from in there. You can just see how big and massive it is. And this is the strongest and only underground vehicle bridge of any cave, certainly in the U.S., maybe the world. And you can see here how it's supported over a chasm in the cave. Wine table in Merrimack Caverns. I'm sure many of you have been to Merrimack. And this is 3 legs. It was formed underwater. You got cave coral on it. And on the very top, after the water drained away, those stalagmites formed. Had the water not drained away, you would not have stalagmites on the top of this formation. And that cave, by the way, is reported to be about 26 miles in length. This here is a massive stalagmite. Here again, they claim the world record. Well, certainly we know it isn't because of the height, because you saw what was in Carlsbad Caverns. But they could well be right if you just want to figure the circumference here. Mark Twain Cave System. Now, I talked to you about Ronald Reagan, the Republican president who went to a cave. Well, a Democratic president went to this cave, and that was Jimmy Carter. And he toured what you see in red. The white is the rest of the cave. It's really a maze cave that Mark Twain wrote about in many of his novels, and it's right at Hannibal, Missouri. And that's a typical passageway. Now our government, remember I told you stainless steel is the best for underground in terms of no deterioration. Also fiberglass, as long as you have no direct sunlight, which doesn't exist in a cave. And this is Jewel Cave, Jewel Cave National Monument. It's 16 miles west of Custer, South Dakota. And when you get off the elevator, you come down to this particular platform to begin a circular tour. Hydromagnesite balloon, one of the unusual cave formations in this cave. And that cave, Jewel Cave, that I just told you about, is the second longest cave in the U.S. at over 130 miles of passageway. Remember I said Mammoth had over 400. This cave is real close by too and almost as long. And Jewel Cave is about the 4th longest cave in the entire world right now. This is the entrance to Wind Cave near Hot Springs, South Dakota. That's where the whistling sound came out. Known for its boxwork. Frostwork, all in the cave. Helictite bushes, and since it's the way that the crystals interlink with each other, has nothing to do with wind currents, as a lot of people believe. Here you can see other directions. And Niagara Cave. And this is a cave near Harmony, Minnesota, and it's just a fraction of a day's drive from here if you really want to get out and go and see it. It's where nature smiles for most 2 miles. And of course, Niagara Cave's got to have a waterfall. So here's the waterfall in Niagara Cave in Minnesota. Now, by now, I know I've showed you the ups. I've showed you the downs, I've showed you the ins, I've showed you the outs of the world's show caves. And sometimes, even as cavers, we get a little confused on what's right side up and upside down, such as in this Tennessee cave. Now, cavers work with show caves, very good. We are working with both the Calumet County Park System and also the Manitowoc County Park System in developing 2 show caves as we speak. In fact, we're just in the process of putting an underground platform in a cave that was discovered in 1862 near Chilton for the public. They get 12,000 school children a year. Now, cavers, when they get together, they do like to have a little fun. And so I thought you might like to see the world's tallest caver. This is when we had an event called Hodag Hunt at the Door County Fairgrounds. And so they like a little entertainment. That cable ladder you see there that's all rolled up, that only weighs a little over a pound, but yet it'll go down 30 feet. And of course, carbide lights are no longer used pretty much. It's all electric. Got your rope. Those are some of the insignia patches of our grotto, or our cave club. And even the world's tallest caver. If you eat your Wheaties, have your life insurance policy paid up, it helps if you're 75% daredevil and 25% fool, you might want to walk around with your head 16 feet off the ground, as I'm doing here at the Midway at the Door County Fairgrounds. You work your way along. You got to make sure you don't stub your feet, because there's only one chance you're firmly connected, and each lift is a direct lift of about 12 pounds. You got to work your way around the interested people there, making sure no one grabs your leg or you're in big trouble. Finally, you get a chance to rest on, of all things, the Emergency Services Building. And with a tip of the hat, that concludes our underground tour around the world of the great show caves. Thank you very much. Now, if anyone's got any questions on any caves or anything, I'd be glad to answer them.
What was that? What was the computer, if you want to see it on the computer?
Okay, if you go to wisconsincaves.org, not .com, but .org, and that will link you up with our Wisconsin website, wisconsincaves.org. And there's all kinds of sections in there. There's videos, you name it. I think you'll be surprised. And it also has our calendar. And like I say, if you want to see the closest show cave that you can walk through, be sure to go to Maribel New Hope Cave. And that's every third Sunday starting in May. And you had a question.
Well, 2 things. For the few years I've lived up here, I've heard rumblings about some undiscovered caves in Door County. And with the rock formation that we have here, wouldn't it be a perfect place to find a cave?
Exactly. In any given area, for every known cave, they figure there's one unknown cave. And I might point out Horseshoe Bay Cave, which I had talked to our park director, who has unfortunately passed away, George Pinney. We'd like to see it possibly developed at some point as a show cave for the public. Whether that happens remains to be seen. But Horseshoe Bay Cave is the longest wild cave out of 400 caves in Wisconsin.
Tell us some of your experiences with that Horseshoe Bay Cave.
Horseshoe Bay Cave goes back 3,103 feet. Divers have gone back further. The biggest room has a ceiling height of about 55 feet. It is not open to the public. I have done the history on the cave. The first documented history was discovery articles in the local newspapers in 1896. And it's a river cave. And there are nice formations in the back, but unless it's excavated and dug out the first 370 feet, which is all possible up to that point, you'd have to crawl in mud and water to really get in to see it. Yes?
Are these things really very strong, or do you ever have any cave vents?
I am thrilled you asked that question. Remember before I talked about mines? Mines, man has gone in and undermined a stable, aspect of nature underground. Mines can be very dangerous. Caves, on the other hand, are just the opposite. If you were to have an earthquake, you could be out in a field, You could be in a cave, you could be right here where we are. Where would you be the safest? Well, as long as you did have a fault or something open, you'd be best to be in the field. But in a cave, we've had cavers in California that were down in a cave and they just felt a very, very slight rumbling. Couldn't figure out what it was, but they kind of surmised. When they got back up on the surface, guess what? Here was whole buildings that were collapsed. And what it is a cave is hollowed out of solid rock. Okay?